Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting in Seoul. It appears Samsung Electronics' worldwide recall and replacement of its Galaxy Note 7 smartphone may have just been the start of its troubles. With reports coming in that the replacement version is a fire risk, Samsung has decided to stop production altogether. Kim Min-ji reports.
The world's #1 smartphone maker, Samsung Electronics, has announced that it will suspend production of the Galaxy Note 7. This comes after the company said earlier in the day it would temporarily stop sales and replacements globally of the phablet. Samsung said as consumer safety is its top priority, all global partners will be asked to halt sales and exchanges as an investigation takes place into whether or not the replacement phones are actually safe to use, following at least 8 cases of the new Note 7s catching fire. The recent fire incidents took place mainly in the U.S., while one such case has been reported in Korea, China, and Taiwan each. Samsung said it has been looking into the recently reported cases with the relevant regulatory bodies in those markets. The latest move comes just over a month after Samsung announced a global recall of 2.5 million Note 7s within days of its release, following several reports of the device catching fire while charging, and offered replacements or a full refund. Samsung has advised consumers with the original Note 7 or a replacement to stop using the device altogether, adding that refunds or exchanges for a different model will be available until the end of the year. All this happened within 2 months since the Galaxy Note 7 was released back on August 19th. The global recall itself is expected to cost Samsung up to $2 billion, but damages could be even greater given the impact it may have on the company's brand image overall.
Now it's the second time, so this time it might affect the brand loyalty. And already we think this affected the other Samsung products as well. Even small problem in other Samsung Galaxy phones, people kind of link that to the Note 7. So this time I think it will affect the consumer's perception of the Samsung brand overall as well. In our monthly sales checks, we already are seeing other Samsung products being impacted by the Note.
The production suspension is a de facto indication of a premature termination of the flagship phablet and is expected to take a toll on the company's fourth quarter earnings. Samsung shares also tumbled on the local market, closing down over 8% on Tuesday. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
President Park on Tuesday reiterated the need to maintain full defense readiness against North Korean provocations, which she noted could happen at any time. At a regular cabinet meeting, the president called for the international community to swiftly adopt stronger sanctions on the North and highlighted the need for strong independent sanctions as well. She also warned Pyongyang that it could face further diplomatic isolation if it continues to pursue nuclear and missile programs. The South Korean leader asked government offices to review and improve the social integration system for North Korean defectors, identifying the ongoing influx of defectors as a possible precursor to unification. South Korea's Defense Minister Han Min-gu and Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will meet with their U.S. counterparts in Washington next week to discuss a range of issues, including the threats from North Korea and ways to enhance their alliance. The South Korean government unveiled the details of the biennial 2+2 meeting on this Tuesday. After the two countries' top diplomats meet, the following day their defense chiefs will sit down at the Pentagon for the 48th Security Consultative Meeting. Up for discussion will be ways to better counter Pyongyang's nuclear and missile threats, as well as the deployment of the U.S. Advanced Missile Defense System, THAAD, to South Korea. Korea's Coast Guard has been given new powers to crack down on Chinese boats fishing illegally in Korean waters. For one, they'll be allowed to use guns when attacked by poachers. This tougher posture follows an incident last week in which Chinese trespassers sank a Coast Guard boat and nearly killed an officer. Hwang Ho-jun has the details.
The measures are the strongest ever to be implemented. The Korean government on Tuesday laid out a new set of measures that will empower the Coast Guard in crackdowns on illegal Chinese fishing in Korean waters. The biggest change is that Coast Guard officers will now be allowed to use weapons during the conflicts. In addition, the Coast Guard will add more patrol ships to its existing fleet. By law, Coast Guard officers can use weapons, and they carry rifles and handguns on board the vessels with them while they're on duty. But this is the first time they will be able to use them in conflicts with the vessels. Last week, in a confrontation between a Chinese fishing vessel and a Korean Coast Guard vessel that led to the Korean vessel to sink, the Korean officers did use their weapons, but they only fired off shots in the air to intimidate the trespassers. In the past, if Korean Coast Guard vessels were outnumbered by trespassing Chinese ships, all the Coast Guard could do was try and force them to leave. And if a Korean vessel came under attack, as it did last week, the Coast Guard had little recourse. But now, the Korean Coast Guard will not only be able to react more aggressively by using weapons, it will also be permitted to launch a cannon fire and ram into the offending vessel. If the ship starts to flee, the Coast Guard can chase it into open water to capture it. And if the trespassing vessel tries to ram into a Korean Coast Guard vessel, all of the fishermen on board will be put under investigation and their assets will be confiscated. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Parliament's annual audit of the government continued on Tuesday, with the rival parties clashing over questions surrounding the death last month of elderly farmer and activist Baek Nam-gi. The ruling Saenuri Party criticized the opposition bloc's call for an independent counsel to look into suspicions that his death was ultimately caused by police action during a protest last year. Baek had been struck by a police water cannon and was in a coma until he died in September. The opposition said an independent counsel is the only way to clear the suspicions because the probe by prosecutors, they said, is taking too long. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. More to come on News Center in 2 hours' time. Bye for now.